The crystal chandelier cast bright light across the ballroom, making everything gleam. Naomi Brooks stood near the bar, holding a silver tray of champagne glasses. Her emerald green dress fit perfectly, the fabric smooth and expensive, but nobody seemed to notice. She watched her husband Clifford laugh with his colleagues across the room, his hand gesturing widely as he told some story that made them all nod. She had arrived at the Lancaster Hotel 2 hours ago, right beside Clifford in his car. They had driven in silence as they did most days now. When they reached the entrance, he told her to wait 5 minutes before coming in. She waited 7, counting each second, wondering when exactly their marriage had become this. 3 years. 3 years since she noticed the changes. The late nights. The new cologne. The way he stopped looking at her when she spoke. But tonight was different. Tonight, something inside her had shifted during that car ride. She'd made calls. She'd prepared. And now she waited. A woman in a red pantsuit approached Clifford, her smile bright and professional. Naomi recognized her from the company website. Angela something. Director of Operations. Clifford's face lit up in that way it used to light up for Naomi, back when they first met at a coffee shop near the university. Clifford, wonderful to see you, Angela said, shaking his hand. Is your wife here tonight? I've been wanting to meet her. Naomi's fingers tightened on the tray. She moved closer, close enough to hear but not close enough to intrude. Not yet. Clifford's smile didn't falter, but something flickered in his eyes. Oh, she couldn't make it. Work emergency. You know how it is. Angela nodded sympathetically. That's too bad. Maybe next time. Naomi felt the champagne glasses tremble slightly on her tray. She steadied her hands. She had heard him lie before, small lies, convenient lies. But never this. Never about her existence. Another couple joined them, the Hendersons, who owned a chain of hotels across the state. Mrs. Henderson looked around the gala with approval. Clifford, you always attend the best events. Is your family here? Flying solo tonight, Clifford said smoothly. Gives me more time to network. Mr. Henderson laughed. Smart man. My wife drags me away from good conversations. Mrs. Henderson swatted his arm playfully and they all laughed. Naomi backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. She circled around to the other side of the room where she could breathe, where she could think, where she could stop the rising heat in her chest that felt like drowning. She'd been married to Clifford for 8 years. 8 years of building a life together. 8 years of supporting his career while hiding her own success. 8 years of being patient, being understanding, being whatever he needed her to be. A server passed by and gave Naomi a curious look. You okay? You look pale. Fine, Naomi whispered. Just fine. But she wasn't fine. She was standing in a room full of people, holding champagne for guests who didn't see her, while her husband pretended she didn't exist. The night wore on. Naomi watched Clifford work the room. He was good at this part. Charming. Confident. He knew exactly what to say to make people like him. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. That confidence. That certainty about the world and his place in it. She remembered their third date when he told her about his dreams. He wanted to climb the corporate ladder. He wanted success. He wanted to matter. And she had loved his ambition because she understood it. She had her own dreams too, dreams she had carefully kept separate from their marriage for reasons that seemed smart at the time. Around 9 o'clock, a group of younger executives gathered near the entrance. Clifford moved toward them like a shark sensing opportunity. Naomi recognized one of them. Brad. Brad had been to their house for dinner twice. Brad had met her, talked to her, complimented her cooking. Clifford, great to see you, Brad said, shaking his hand. How's everything at home? Naomi held her breath. Good, good, Clifford said. Keeping busy. And your wife? Nicole, right? Naomi, Clifford corrected, and for a moment Naomi felt a small relief. At least he remembered her name. But then he continued. She's actually here tonight. Working the event. Brad looked confused. Working? Yeah, Clifford said, lowering his voice slightly, but not enough. Never enough. She picks up catering gigs sometimes. Extra income, you know. Every bit helps. Naomi's world tilted. The champagne glasses clinked together on her tray. Several people turned to look at her. She forced a smile, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind of smile that took every ounce of strength she had. Brad's confusion deepened. Wait, I thought she worked in finance or something? Nah, Clifford said, waving his hand dismissively. She tells people that sometimes. Pride thing. But between us, she does this kind of work. Catering. Cleaning. Whatever she can find. I keep telling her she doesn't need to, but she insists. The words landed like stones in still water rippling outward. A woman standing near them, someone Naomi didn't know, glanced over with pity in her eyes. Another man smirked slightly, the kind of smirk that said he was filing this information away for later gossip. Naomi wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the tray across the room. She wanted to walk over there and tell them all the truth. Tell them that she had more money in her private accounts than Clifford would make in 10 lifetimes. Tell them about the investments, the properties, the business deals she'd been making since before they got married. Tell them that the only reason Clifford had his current job was because she'd made a call to Richard Morrison 3 years ago when Clifford was desperate for a promotion. But she didn't. She stood there, holding the tray, wearing the emerald green dress, being invisible in the brightest room she'd ever been in. Someone touched her elbow. She turned to find a server, a young man with kind eyes. "Hey, you can take a break if you want. Put the tray down." "I'm not." Naomi started, then stopped. What was she? Not a server. Not a guest. Not a wife, apparently. "Thank you," she whispered. She moved to the back hallway, past the kitchen, and found a small alcove where she could stand without being seen. Her phone buzzed in the small purse she tucked under her arm. A text from Richard Morrison, the CEO. "Ready in 5 minutes. You good?" Naomi looked at herself in the decorative mirror on the wall. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was styled beautifully. She looked like success. She looked like power. She just needed to remember it. She typed back, "Ready?" The sounds of the gala filtered through the hallway. Music. Laughter. The clink of glasses. Somewhere in that room, Clifford was still networking, still climbing, still pretending his wife was anything other than what she really was. But in 5 minutes, everything would change. Naomi straightened her shoulders. She checked her reflection one more time. The woman looking back at her wasn't broken. She was angry. And anger, she was learning, could be a kind of fuel. Her phone buzzed again. It's time. Naomi walked back toward the ballroom. Each step felt deliberate. Each breath felt measured. She had spent 3 months planning this moment, ever since she discovered the affair, ever since she realized that Clifford saw her as nothing more than an accessory to be displayed when convenient and hidden when necessary. The servers were clearing the dinner plates. The main program was about to begin. Richard Morrison stepped up to the microphone at the front of the room. His voice carried clearly across the space. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Lancaster Hotel for our annual company gala." Applause rippled through the crowd. Clifford stood near the front, drink in hand, probably planning his approach to the CEO after the speeches ended. "Tonight, we have something special planned," Richard continued. "As many of you know, our company has been fortunate to have some extraordinary investors and partners over the years. One of them has been particularly instrumental in our growth over the past decade." Naomi moved along the edge of the room, getting closer to the stage. Nobody paid attention to her. Nobody ever did. "This person has preferred to remain anonymous, working behind the scenes, making strategic decisions that have shaped our success," Richard said. "But tonight, at their request, I'm honored to introduce them properly." Clifford shifted in his position, curious now like everyone else in the room. "Please join me in welcoming the host of tonight's gala, our lead investor and a remarkable businesswoman," Richard said, his eyes finding Naomi in the crowd. "Naomi Brooks." The room went still. Then confused. People looked around, searching for this Naomi Brooks, expecting someone they recognized from the business pages, someone important, someone who mattered. Richard extended his hand toward Naomi. "Naomi, please come up." All eyes turned to her. The woman in the emerald green dress. The woman holding the silver tray. The woman Clifford had introduced as his maid. Naomi set down the tray carefully on a nearby table. She smoothed her dress. And then she walked toward the stage, her heels clicking against the marble floor in the sudden quiet of the ballroom. Clifford's face drained of color. His drink slipped from his hand, splashing across his expensive shoes. He stood frozen, mouth slightly open, watching as Naomi climbed the steps to the stage and shook Richard Morrison's hand. The CEO smiled at her warmly, then turned back to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about the remarkable woman you've been overlooking all evening." Naomi stood at the microphone, looking out at 300 faces turned toward her. The bright lights made it hard to see individual expressions, but she could feel the confusion rippling through the crowd. She found Clifford easily. He was still standing in the same spot, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Richard Morrison stood beside her, his presence a steady anchor. Naomi Brooks is the majority shareholder in Morrison Industries, he said into the microphone. She's been guiding our strategic direction for the past 10 years. Her investments have grown our company from $20 million to $400 million in annual revenue. Murmurs spread through the audience. People leaned toward each other, whispering questions. Brad, the young executive who had spoken to Clifford earlier, looked between Naomi and Clifford with his mouth hanging open. Naomi graduated top of her class from Stanford Business School, Richard continued. She inherited a significant portfolio from her grandmother at age 24 and turned it into something extraordinary. She owns properties in 7 states, sits on the boards of 4 major corporations, and has consistently demonstrated the kind of business acumen that most people spend lifetimes trying to develop. Naomi watched Clifford's face cycle through emotions. Shock gave way to confusion. Confusion gave way to something that looked like anger. Or maybe fear. She couldn't tell anymore. She'd stopped being able to read him years ago. Why don't you tell them about yourself, Naomi? Richard said, stepping back from the microphone and giving her the spotlight. Naomi gripped the edges of the podium. Her hands were steady now. The trembling from earlier had disappeared, replaced by something colder. Something clearer. Thank you, Richard, she said. Her voice carried across the silent ballroom. I appreciate the introduction, though I know it's created some confusion tonight. A few nervous laughs echoed from the crowd. I've been married for 8 years, Naomi continued. And for 8 years I've kept my professional life separate from my personal life. I thought I was being careful, protecting something precious. But tonight, I learned an important lesson about what happens when you make yourself small for someone else's comfort. More murmurs. People were putting pieces together now, slowly realizing what they were witnessing. Some of you met me earlier tonight, Naomi said. You saw me holding a tray. You saw me serving drinks. And some of you were told that's what I do. That I'm a caterer. A maid. Someone who picks up odd jobs to help make ends meet. The whispers grew louder. People were looking at Clifford now. He had backed up slightly, bumping into Angela from operations. But the truth is, Naomi said, and her voice was steady, so steady it surprised even her, I've never worked as a caterer. I've never needed odd jobs. What I have needed is honesty. Respect. The basic courtesy of being acknowledged as a human being with value. Someone in the back started clapping, slowly. Others joined in. The applause built until it filled the room, and Naomi felt something crack open in her chest. Not grief. Something else. Something that felt like freedom. Tonight isn't about revenge, Naomi said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. It's about truth. And the truth is that I've spent years hiding who I am because I was told that my success might be threatening. I was told that a marriage works better when the woman doesn't shine too bright. I was told to be supportive, to be quiet, to be grateful. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I'm done being quiet, Naomi said. I'm done apologizing for taking up space. And I'm done pretending that someone else's insecurity is my responsibility to manage. The applause came again, louder this time. Women throughout the audience were nodding, their faces showing recognition of something familiar. Something they'd experienced themselves. Richard stepped forward again. Naomi has agreed to share her story tonight as part of our speaker series on women in business. After dinner, we'll have a conversation about the unique challenges women face when navigating both professional success and personal relationships. Naomi looked at Clifford one more time. He was pushing through the crowd now, heading toward the exit. People stepped aside to let him pass, their expressions ranging from sympathy to judgment. Nobody tried to stop him. But first, Richard said, let's hear about how Naomi built her business empire, starting with a $50,000 inheritance and a dream. Naomi took a breath and began. She told them about her grandmother, Patricia Brooks, who had worked as a teacher for 40 years and saved every penny. She told them about finding out, right after her grandmother died, that Patricia had been investing in stocks since the 1960s, building a portfolio that nobody in the family knew about. She left me a letter with the inheritance, Naomi said. It said, money is power, baby girl. Never forget that. And never let anyone make you apologize for having it. More applause. Naomi could see several older women in the audience wiping their eyes. She told them about her first investment, a small apartment building in a neighborhood everyone said was too risky. How she renovated it, filled it with good tenants, and sold it 3 years later for triple what she'd paid. She told them about learning to trust her instincts, about making mistakes, about slowly building confidence in a world that constantly questioned whether she belonged. I met my husband when I was 26, Naomi said. I had just closed a deal on my 4th property. I was happy. Confident. I thought I'd found someone who saw me for who I really was. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But somewhere along the way I made a choice. I decided that my success might be too much. That it might overshadow his career. That it might make him feel small. So I stopped talking about my work. I stopped bringing it home. I created two separate lives, thinking I was preserving my marriage. The ballroom was completely silent now except for her voice. What I didn't realize, Naomi continued, was that by making myself smaller, I wasn't saving anything. I was just teaching someone that I could be dismissed. That I could be ignored. That I could be introduced as the help at a gala where I'm actually the host. Someone gasped. Angela from operations put her hand over her mouth. So tonight is about reclaiming space, Naomi said. Not just for me but for every woman who's been told she's too much. Too ambitious. Too successful. Too loud. Too anything. The applause was thunderous now. People were standing. Richard Morrison was beaming beside her. And somewhere outside the ballroom, Clifford was learning that the wife he'd dismissed was the reason he had a career at all. Naomi spent the next hour answering questions from the audience. Women asked about balancing career and relationships. Men asked about supporting successful partners without feeling threatened. Younger executives asked about investment strategies and risk management. Through it all, Naomi felt something loosening in her chest. The tightness that had been there for months, maybe years, was finally starting to release. She was breathing easier. Speaking clearer. Being herself in a way she hadn't allowed in far too long. Around 11 o'clock, the formal program ended. People mingled, networking and discussing what they'd witnessed. Several women approached Naomi to thank her, some with tears in their eyes, others with business cards and questions about mentorship. Angela from operations found her near the bar. I need to apologize, she said. When Clifford said his wife couldn't make it, I just accepted it. I should have questioned it. I should have thought harder about what that meant. It's not your responsibility, Naomi said gently. You believe what you were told. Most people do. Still, Angela said, what you did tonight took courage. Real courage. After Angela walked away, Richard Morrison approached with 2 glasses of champagne. You did beautifully, he said, handing her one. Though I have to admit, I wasn't sure you'd go through with it. Neither was I, Naomi admitted. Right up until he called me a maid, I was planning to just slip out early and file for divorce quietly. What changed your mind? Naomi thought about it. I realized that quiet was what got me here in the first place. Being understanding. Being patient. Being invisible. If I divorced him quietly, I'd be doing the same thing I've always done. Protecting his reputation at the expense of my truth. Richard nodded. For what it's worth, I think Patricia would be proud of you tonight. My grandmother would have burned the building down, Naomi said with a small smile. But yes, I think she'd approve of this version too. They stood together, watching the remaining guests. The gala was winding down, but the energy in the room felt different now. Charged. Alive. Like something important had shifted. What happens next? Richard asked. Naomi took a sip of champagne. I have a meeting with my attorney in the morning. Divorce papers are already drawn up. I've documented everything. The affair, the financial discrepancies, all of it. You knew about the affair? For 3 months. I hired a private investigator in October. Richard whistled low. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself, Naomi corrected. There's a difference. She thought about Candace Pierce, the woman Clifford had been seeing. A paralegal from a firm downtown. 28 years old. Beautiful. Ambitious. Everything Clifford apparently wanted in a woman who wasn't his wife. Naomi had never met Candace in person, but she'd seen enough photos from the investigator's reports. Candace in Clifford's car. Candace leaving his hotel room. Candace wearing a bracelet that Naomi recognized from their joint credit card statement. The anger rose again, hot and sharp. But Naomi pushed it down. Anger could wait. Right now she needed clarity. Go home, Richard said gently. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow about the next steps for the business. I'm not going home, Naomi said. I'm going to a hotel. I have a room booked at the Preston. Good thinking. Naomi gathered her purse and coat. As she walked through the lobby of the Lancaster Hotel, she passed a window that reflected her image back at her. She looked different than she had hours ago. Taller. Stronger. More herself. Outside, the January air was cold and clear. Naomi stood on the steps and breathed it in, feeling it fill her lungs with sharp clarity. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. We need to talk. Please. Clifford. He must have gotten a new phone or was using someone else's. Naomi deleted the message without responding. She'd said everything she needed to say tonight. Now it was time for lawyers to talk. For paperwork to process. For a marriage to officially end. A car pulled up. Her Uber. The driver smiled at her in the rearview mirror. Good evening? Good evening, Naomi confirmed, sliding into the back seat. The Preston Hotel, please? As they pulled away from the Lancaster, Naomi looked back one more time at the building where her old life had ended. Where she'd been called a maid. Where she'd reclaimed her power. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Confrontations. Legal battles. The messy work of untangling 8 years of shared life. But tonight she was free. The Preston hotel room was exactly what Naomi needed. Clean. Quiet. Neutral. She stood at the window looking out over the city lights, her phone buzzing constantly on the nightstand. 16 missed calls from Clifford. 12 text messages. 2 voicemails she hadn't listened to. She powered off the phone and set it face down. Whatever Clifford needed to say could wait until lawyers were present. She'd learned that much from her attorney, Jennifer Cole, who had been very clear about maintaining boundaries during divorce proceedings. Sleep came in fragments. Naomi would drift off, then wake suddenly, her heart racing, replaying moments from the gala. Clifford's face when Richard called her name. The gasps from the audience. The applause. The freedom of finally telling the truth. Around 3 in the morning she gave up on sleep and ordered room service. Coffee and toast. Simple things. She sat at the small desk and pulled out her laptop, reviewing the documents Jennifer had prepared weeks ago. Divorce petition. Asset division. Evidence of infidelity. Everything was documented. Bank statements showing transfers to Candace's account. Hotel receipts. Phone records. Text messages recovered from Clifford's iPad that he didn't know she had access to. 3 years of lies, all neatly organized in digital folders. Naomi remembered the day she'd discovered the affair. October 15th. She'd come home early from a meeting in Chicago, planning to surprise Clifford with dinner from his favorite restaurant. Instead, she'd found his phone on the kitchen counter, buzzing with messages. Miss you already? Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you Friday. Same hotel. Love you. 3 little words that had shattered everything. Naomi had stood there, holding his phone, feeling the floor tilt beneath her feet. For a moment, she'd considered confronting him immediately. Making a scene. Demanding explanations. But something had stopped her. Some instinct for self-preservation. Instead, she'd carefully photographed every message, put the phone back exactly where she'd found it, and called a private investigator. Document everything, the investigator, a woman named Patricia Green, had told her. Emotions are valid, but evidence is what matters in court. So Naomi had documented. She'd watched. She'd waited. She'd built a case while pretending everything was normal. While sleeping beside a man who came home smelling like someone else's perfume. While listening to him lie about late meetings and business trips. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was continuing to live as if she didn't know. Smiling at dinner. Asking about his day. Maintaining the fiction of their marriage while knowing it was already dead. A knock on the hotel room door startled her. Naomi checked the peephole. A woman in a hotel uniform stood in the hallway, holding a large envelope. Delivery for Ms. Brooks, the woman said when Naomi opened the door. I didn't order anything. It was left at the front desk with instructions to bring it up first thing in the morning. Naomi took the envelope carefully. Her name was written across the front in handwriting she didn't recognize. She tipped the woman and closed the door, staring at the envelope. Inside she found a letter and several photographs. Her heart sank as she recognized the images. Clifford and Candace at various locations around the city. But these weren't from her investigator. These were different angles. Different dates. Someone else had been watching too. The letter was typed, formal. Ms. Brooks, I thought you should know what your husband has been doing. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you. A concerned friend. No signature. No return address. Naomi sat on the bed studying the photos. Whoever took these had access to places her investigator didn't. Inside restaurants. Inside the hotel lobby. Inside Clifford's office building. Her phone buzzed again. She turned it back on to check the time. Another text from Clifford's number. Naomi, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. She typed back quickly. Speak to my attorney. Jennifer Cole. No direct contact. His response came immediately. You're being unreasonable. After 8 years, don't I deserve a chance to explain? Naomi stared at the message. Unreasonable. After everything, she was being unreasonable. She called Jennifer, not caring that it was 5 in the morning. Naomi? Jennifer's voice was groggy but alert. What happened? He's texting me. Calling me unreasonable. Block the number. Don't respond again. Let me handle all communication from this point forward. Someone sent me photos. Of Clifford and Candace. Someone else has been following them. Pause. Bring them to my office this morning. We'll figure out who sent them and why. After hanging up, Naomi blocked Clifford's number. Then she showered, dressed in a blue suit she'd packed in her overnight bag, and prepared for what came next. Jennifer's office was downtown, in a glass building that reflected morning sunlight. Naomi arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, the envelope of photos in her briefcase along with her laptop containing all her documented evidence. Show me, Jennifer said immediately, gesturing to the conference table. Naomi spread out the photos. Jennifer studied them carefully, making notes. These are good quality, professional equipment. Whoever took these knew what they were doing. Could it be someone from Candace's life? A friend warning me? Maybe. Or someone with a grudge against your husband. Or even someone who works for him and saw an opportunity. Jennifer's assistant knocked on the door. Miss Cole? There's someone here to see Ms. Brooks. She says it's urgent. Who? Candace Pierce. Naomi's stomach dropped. She's here? Jennifer stood quickly. Stay here. Let me handle this. But Naomi was already moving toward the door. No. I want to see her. They found Candace in the lobby, pacing near the elevators. She was younger than Naomi expected. Prettier. Wearing a green dress that probably cost more than her paralegal salary should allow. She looked up when Naomi and Jennifer entered. You're Naomi? Candace said. Not a question. I am. I need to talk to you. Jennifer stepped between them. My client doesn't need to speak with you. Anything you have to say can go through legal channels. Please, Candace said, and her voice cracked. Just 5 minutes? That's all I'm asking. Naomi studied her. This woman had been sleeping with her husband for 3 years. This woman had accepted gifts bought with joint account money. This woman had known Clifford was married and hadn't cared. No, Naomi said quietly. I don't think I will. He told me you two were separated, Candace said quickly. He said you were living separate lives. He said the marriage was over, you just hadn't made it official yet. And you believed him? Candace's eyes filled with tears. I saw the photos from last night. On social media. Everyone's talking about it. About you. About what happened at the gala. Good. I didn't know, Candace said. I swear I didn't know you were still together. Not really together. Naomi felt the anger rising again, hot and sharp. You knew he was married. That should have been enough. I know. You're right. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm leaving him. I ended it this morning. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. Your apology means nothing to me, Naomi said. But I'm glad you're leaving him. Not for your sake. For mine. Because now he has nothing. No wife. No mistress. Just the consequences of his choices. Candace nodded slowly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. These are copies of text messages. Things Clifford said about you. About your marriage. About his plans. I thought you might want them. For the divorce. Jennifer took the envelope before Naomi could. We'll review these. Anything else? No. That's all. I just wanted to do the right thing. Finally. After Candace left, Jennifer and Naomi returned to the conference room. Jennifer opened the envelope carefully, reading through the printed text messages. These are bad, Jennifer said after a moment. Really bad. He's talking about hiding assets. About making sure you don't get too much in the divorce. About plans to claim you're mentally unstable. Naomi felt cold. What? He's been building a case against you. Or trying to. Look at this one. She's been acting strange lately. Paranoid. I'm worried about her mental state. Might need to document it for the divorce lawyer. I haven't been acting strange. I've been acting normal while investigating his affair. I know. But he was setting up a narrative. Probably planning to use it against you when you eventually discovered the truth. Naomi sat down heavily. He was that calculated? That cold? Apparently. Jennifer continued reading. There's more. He's telling Candace about your business. About how much you're worth. About how he deserves half of everything because he supported you emotionally during the marriage. He didn't support anything. He didn't even acknowledge my business existed. Which is exactly why we're going to win this divorce so thoroughly, Jennifer said with satisfaction. Between what we already have and these new messages, we can prove not only infidelity but also intent to defraud you. This changes everything. Naomi looked at the photos spread across the table. At the text messages. At the evidence of a marriage that had been dying for years while she tried desperately to keep it alive. I want this done quickly, she said. I want him out of my life. We'll move fast. I'll file the papers this afternoon. He'll be served by tomorrow morning. And the house. It's in your name. Your inheritance bought it. He has no claim. His car. Joint title, but we can argue you paid for it. We'll sort it out. Naomi nodded. What about his job? At Morrison Industries. Jennifer looked uncomfortable. That's trickier. You can't get him fired just because of the divorce. I don't need to. Richard Morrison saw what happened last night. And Richard is very particular about the kind of people who represent his company. Clifford made himself a liability. You're not going to try to get him fired? I don't have to try. He did that himself when he humiliated me in front of his CEO. They worked through the rest of the morning, finalizing documents and strategies. By noon, Naomi felt exhausted but clear. The path forward was mapped. The evidence was solid. The marriage was ending. Her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. She answered cautiously. Naomi Brooks? Yes. This is Detective Sarah Chen from the downtown precinct. I'm calling about a harassment complaint filed this morning. Can you come down to the station? Harassment? Filed by who? Your husband, Clifford Brooks. He claims you've been stalking him and interfering with his personal relationships. Naomi looked at Jennifer, who had heard enough to understand what was happening. Tell the detective I'll be there with my attorney, Jennifer said firmly, and that we have evidence that will completely refute any claims Mr. Brooks is making. Naomi relayed the message. Detective Chen sighed audibly. Another messy divorce. Fine. Come down whenever you can this afternoon. We'll sort it out. After hanging up, Naomi felt something shift inside her. Clifford wasn't just trying to protect himself. He was actively trying to hurt her. To paint her as unstable. To turn her into the villain of their story. He's desperate, Jennifer said. That's good for us. Desperate people make mistakes. I want to go to that police station right now. I want to show them everything. I want him to understand that I'm not the person he married anymore. The person he could push around, Jennifer clarified. Yes, that person is gone. They gathered their evidence and headed downtown. Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just anger. Not just hurt. But power. Real power. The kind that came from knowing the truth and having the documentation to prove it. Clifford wanted a fight. He'd get one. But not the fight he expected. This time, Naomi wasn't protecting his feelings. Wasn't managing his ego. Wasn't making herself small. This time she was coming with everything she had. The police station was bright and busy, full of ringing phones and officers moving between desks. Detective Sarah Chen met them in the lobby. She was younger than Naomi expected, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes that suggested she'd seen too many domestic disputes. Miss Brooks? I'm Detective Chen. Let's talk in an interview room where it's quieter. They followed her down a hallway to a small room with a table and 4 chairs. The walls were painted pale yellow, probably meant to be calming but coming across as dingy. Jennifer set her briefcase on the table with a decisive thud. Before we begin, Jennifer said, I want to clarify that my client is here voluntarily to address false accusations made by her estranged husband. Estranged? Detective Chin opened her notebook. According to the complaint filed this morning, you two are still married and living together. We're married on paper, Naomi said. But I moved out last night after discovering he'd been having an affair for 3 years. Detective Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. I see. And the complaint states that you've been following him, taking photographs and interfering with his relationships. He claims you're unstable and potentially dangerous. I hired a private investigator, Naomi corrected. Which is completely legal. And I have documentation of his affair, his financial misconduct, and his attempts to hide assets before filing for divorce. Jennifer pulled out a tablet and began organizing files. We have bank statements, text messages, and photographs. All obtained legally. My client has done nothing wrong except protect herself from a cheating spouse who was planning to defraud her in divorce proceedings. Detective Chen looked between them, then down at her notebook where she'd presumably written details from Clifford's complaint. So this is a divorce situation. Yes, Jennifer said firmly. A divorce where one party is trying to use law enforcement to harass the other party. We could file our own complaint for filing a false police report. Let me see what you have, Detective Chin said with a sigh. For the next hour, Jennifer walked through the evidence. The bank statements showing transfers to Candace. The hotel receipts. The investigators' photographs. The text messages Candace had provided that morning, showing Clifford's plans to paint Naomi as mentally unstable. Detective Chen listened quietly, occasionally making notes. When Jennifer finished, the detective sat back in her chair. Mr. Brooks left out quite a bit of context when he filed this complaint. He lied, Naomi said bluntly, because he's panicking. Last night I revealed the truth about our marriage at a very public event. His reputation is damaged. His girlfriend left him this morning. He's trying to regain control by making me look like the problem. Have you threatened him in any way? No. I've only communicated through my attorney since last night. Have you attempted to contact his girlfriend? She came to my attorney's office this morning. I didn't seek her out. She wanted to apologize and provide evidence against Clifford. Detective Chen closed her notebook. Based on what you've shown me, I don't see any criminal behavior on your part. Hiring a private investigator is legal. Protecting your assets before a divorce is smart. Mr. Brooks seems to be confused about the difference between legitimate investigation and harassment. What happens to his complaint? Jennifer asked. I'll file my report stating that there's no evidence of stalking or harassment. The complaint will be marked as unfounded. If he continues to make false reports, we can discuss charges against him for wasting police resources. Naomi felt tension release from her shoulders. Thank you. For what it's worth, Detective Chin said as they stood to leave, I see a lot of divorces in this job. Some people handle it with dignity. Others try to destroy their former partners. Sounds like your husband is in the second category. He is, Naomi agreed. But he's going to learn that I'm not as easy to destroy as he thinks. Outside the police station, Jennifer's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression darkened. That was my assistant. Clifford showed up at my office demanding to speak with you. When she refused, he tried to force his way past her desk. Security escorted him out, but he's making threats. What kind of threats? That you'll regret humiliating him. That you don't know who you're messing with. That he has connections who can make your life difficult. Naomi laughed, but there was no humor in it. Connections? He's a mid-level sales executive who only got promoted because I made a call to his boss. What connections could he possibly have? Probably none. But desperate people say stupid things. I'm going to call Richard Morrison and give him a heads up about Clifford's behavior. He might need to take action if Clifford is harassing people at your attorney's office. They walked to Jennifer's car. The afternoon sun was bright but not bright enough to warm the January air. Naomi wrapped her coat tighter. Where are you staying tonight? Jennifer asked. The Preston again, I guess. I haven't had time to look for an apartment. I have a friend who manages luxury properties. Let me make a call. You need somewhere secure where Clifford can't find you until this settles down. An hour later, Naomi was following Jennifer's car to a building in the financial district. The Monroe Tower. 30 stories of glass and steel. The kind of place Clifford had always dreamed of living but could never afford. Jennifer's friend, a woman named Rachel who wore a red suit and practical heels, met them in the lobby. We have a penthouse available immediately, Rachel said after brief introductions. 28th floor. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, full kitchen, balcony with city views. It's furnished and move-in ready. How much? Naomi asked. Rachel named a figure that made Jennifer wince, but Naomi just nodded. I'll take it. Don't you want to see it first? Is it secure? Doorman? Keycard access. Yes to all. Then I'll take it. 20 minutes later, Naomi stood in her new penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spreading out below. The furniture was modern and neutral. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances. It was exactly what she needed. Clean. Safe. Hers. Jennifer joined her at the windows. This is nice. It's temporary. Until I figure out what I really want. What do you really want? Naomi thought about it. 6 months ago, she would have said she wanted her marriage to work. She wanted Clifford to see her value. She wanted to be enough. But now, I want peace, Naomi said. And I want to stop making myself small for someone else's ego. That's a good start. After Jennifer left, Naomi ordered furniture delivery for a few personal items she'd need. Then she called her parents. Her mother answered on the second ring. Naomi? We've been trying to reach you since last night. Everyone's talking about what happened at that gala. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine. Your father wants to kill Clifford. I had to talk him out of driving to your house. Naomi smiled despite everything. Her father was a retired teacher who'd never thrown a punch in his life, but his protective instincts were fierce. Tell Dad I'm handling it. I have a good lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. And I'm safe. Where are you staying? A new apartment. I'll text you the address, but please don't share it with anyone. Not yet. Her mother was quiet for a moment. I always liked Clifford. He seemed so charming. So ambitious. He was charming. He still is when he wants to be. But charm doesn't make up for betrayal. No, it doesn't. Naomi, I'm proud of you. What you did last night took real courage. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes for the first time since the gala. Thanks, Mom. Your grandmother would be proud too. She never liked that you kept your business quiet. She used to tell me, that girl's got too much light to hide it under someone else's shadow. I miss her. We all do. But she's watching and she's probably laughing at how you handled that man. After hanging up with her mother, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from Richard Morrison. Need to meet with you tomorrow. Clifford caused a scene at the office today. Security had to remove him. We need to discuss next steps. Naomi responded, what time? 10 a.m. My office. Bring your attorney if you want. She forwarded the message to Jennifer, who responded immediately, I'll be there. The sun was setting over the city. Naomi stood at her new windows, watching lights blink on across the skyline. This morning she'd woken up in a hotel room, still technically married to a man who'd called her his maid. Tonight she was standing in a penthouse apartment, legally separating herself from that life. Her phone buzzed again. An email from Patricia Green, the private investigator. Ms. Brooks saw the news about the gala. Congratulations on your public stand. Wanted you to know I've been contacted by 3 other women whose husbands work at Morrison Industries. They're asking if I can investigate their marriages too. Your story is already making a difference. Take care of yourself. Naomi read the email twice. 3 other women. 3 other marriages where suspicion had been growing. 3 other women who'd seen what she did and found courage. She thought about Candace showing up at Jennifer's office with more evidence. About the anonymous photos sent to the hotel. About all the people who'd been watching Clifford's behavior and waiting for someone to finally call it out. Maybe that's what courage really was. Not being fearless, but being the first person to say the truth out loud so others could follow. The elevator dinged in the hallway. Naomi tensed, then relaxed when she heard Rachel's voice calling out, "Delivery service." Rachel appeared with shopping bags. Figured you might need some basics. Toiletries, coffee, snacks. Nothing fancy, but enough to get you through tonight. You didn't have to do that. Jennifer's a good friend. And honestly, after hearing what you're going through, I wanted to help. My sister went through a nasty divorce last year. I know how isolating it can feel. Naomi helped Rachel unpack the bags in the kitchen. Coffee, bread, eggs. Simple things that felt like kindness. If you need anything, Rachel said as she left, call me. Doorman issues, apartment problems, or just someone to grab coffee with. I'm here. Alone again, Naomi made herself dinner. Scrambled eggs and toast. She ate standing at the windows watching the city move below. Somewhere out there, Clifford was probably spiraling. Calling friends. Making plans. Building his defense. But Naomi had something he didn't. She had the truth. And she had evidence. And she had finally stopped caring about protecting his reputation at the expense of her own dignity. Her phone rang. Jennifer. Just got off the phone with Richard Morrison. He's terminating Clifford's employment. What? Why? Apparently Clifford showed up drunk at the office this afternoon. Made threats. Told people you'd stolen his career. Said some pretty ugly things about you to other employees. Richard had security escort him out and is processing termination papers tonight. Naomi sat down heavily on the couch. He's destroying himself. Yes, he is. And there's nothing you need to do except stay safe and let him keep making mistakes. After hanging up, Naomi thought about the man she'd married 8 years ago. The charming business student who'd bought her coffee every morning for 2 weeks before finally asking her out. The man who'd seemed so confident and sure. Where had that man gone? Or had he ever really existed? Had she just seen what she wanted to see, ignored the warning signs because she was in love with potential rather than reality? She'd never know for sure. And maybe that was okay. Maybe some questions didn't need answers. Maybe it was enough to know she was moving forward, away from the lies and into something clearer. Naomi finished her dinner, washed her dishes, and prepared for bed in her new apartment. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. The meeting with Richard. More legal proceedings. More pieces of her old life falling away. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, she slept soundly. No nightmares. No anxiety. Just deep, peaceful rest in a space that was entirely hers. Morning arrived with bright sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows. Naomi woke feeling more rested than she had in months. She made coffee in her new kitchen, appreciating the quiet efficiency of having a space that wasn't full of someone else's presence. At 9:30, Jennifer arrived to drive them both to Morrison Industries. "You look good," Jennifer said, studying Naomi's blue suit and confident posture. "You look like someone who's winning." "I feel like someone who's finally being honest." Richard Morrison's office was on the top floor, all windows and modern furniture. His assistant, a man named Thomas, greeted them warmly. "Mr. Morrison is expecting you. Go right in." Richard stood when they entered, coming around his desk to shake their hands. "Naomi." "Jennifer. Thanks for coming." "Your email sounded urgent," Naomi said. "It is. Please sit." Richard returned to his chair, his expression serious. "Yesterday was difficult. After Clifford's behavior at the office, I had no choice but to terminate his employment. Jennifer told me. What she didn't tell you is that Clifford threatened to sue the company. He's claiming wrongful termination. Says that I only fired him because of personal bias related to your divorce." Naomi felt her jaw tighten. "That's absurd." "I know. But he's hired an attorney and is making noise about a lawsuit. I wanted you to know before it becomes public." "Do you need me to do anything?" "No. Our legal team is handling it. We have documentation of his behavior. Witness statements from employees he threatened. Security footage. The termination was entirely justified." Richard paused. "But I do need to discuss your role in the company." Naomi's stomach dropped. "You're removing me from the board?" "What? No. The opposite. I want to make your position official and public. Right now you're our silent partner. I think it's time to change that. I want you as our chief investment officer. A visible leadership role. Full authority over our portfolio and strategic growth." The relief was immediate and overwhelming. "You want me to come out of the shadows completely?" "I do. What happened at the gala showed me something. You've been hiding your brilliance for too long. This company has benefited from your insight for years. Our shareholders deserve to know who's been guiding our success." Jennifer was smiling. "That's a significant offer." "It comes with a significant salary," Richard added, sliding a folder across his desk. "Employment contract. Benefits package. Everything spelled out clearly." Naomi opened the folder, scanning the numbers. The salary was triple what she'd been paid for the same work. The benefits included full health coverage, retirement matching, stock options. It was exactly what she deserved and had never asked for. "Why now?" she asked. "Because hiding you was always wrong," Richard said simply. "I went along with it because you asked me to. Because you said your marriage was easier if you kept your work separate. But Naomi, watching what Clifford did to you at that gala made me realize I'd been complicit in your diminishment. I'd let you hide because it was easier for me too. I didn't have to deal with the questions or the attention. But that needs to change." Naomi looked at Jennifer, who nodded encouragingly. "I need to think about it," Naomi said. "Of course. Take whatever time you need. But I hope you'll say yes. This company needs you. And I think you need this too. A chance to be fully yourself in your professional life, not just your personal life." They discussed logistics for another hour. What the role would entail. When they'd make the announcement. How to handle press inquiries. Through it all, Naomi felt something growing inside her. Not just relief or gratitude but possibility. After leaving Morrison Industries, Jennifer drove Naomi back to her apartment. "You're going to take that job, right?" "Yes, I think I am." "Good. Because you deserve it. And because Clifford is going to lose his mind when he finds out." Naomi laughed. "That's not why I'm taking it." "I know. But it's a nice bonus." At the apartment, Naomi found a stack of boxes waiting by her door. Her personal belongings from the house. Clothes, books, a few photographs. Jennifer helped her carry them inside. "Did you arrange this?" Naomi asked. "I had a moving service go to the house yesterday with a police escort. Clifford wasn't home. We took only what was clearly yours and left everything else." Naomi opened one box, finding her grandmother's jewelry box nested in bubble wrap. Relief washed over her. "Thank you. I was worried about this." "I figured." That's why we made it a priority. They spent the afternoon unpacking. Naomi hung clothes in her new closet, arranged books on the shelves, and placed her grandmother's photograph on the nightstand. Slowly, the apartment started feeling less temporary and more like home. Jennifer's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression darkened. I see. Yes, we'll handle it. Thanks for the call. What happened? That was my assistant. Clifford served us with papers this morning. He's contesting the divorce and demanding half of everything, including your business assets. Naomi had expected this, but it still stung. On what grounds? He's claiming he contributed to your business success through emotional support and household management. He says he freed you up to focus on work by handling domestic responsibilities. He did laundry twice in 8 years. I know. We'll fight it. But it means this is going to get uglier before it gets better. That evening, Naomi sat alone in her apartment, reviewing the divorce papers Clifford had filed. His claims were outrageous. He wanted the house, which she'd bought with inheritance money before they married. He wanted half her investment portfolio. He wanted monthly spousal support. He even wanted half the value of her shares in Morrison Industries. Her phone rang. A known number. She answered cautiously. Naomi? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes. This is Angela from operations at Morrison Industries. We met at the Gala. I remember. How did you get this number? From Richard's assistant. I hope that's okay. I wanted to call and warn you about something. Warn me? Clifford came by my house today. He was looking for information about you. About your role at the company. About your finances. I told him I didn't know anything, but he was persistent. Almost aggressive. I wanted you to know in case he tries to approach other people. Naomi felt cold. Did he threaten you? Not directly. But he said things like, people who help me will be rewarded, and people who stand in my way will regret it. It felt wrong. I wanted you to be careful. Thank you for calling. I'll let my attorney know. After hanging up, Naomi immediately called Jennifer and relayed the conversation. That's witness intimidation, Jennifer said grimly. Or close enough. I'm going to file a motion for a restraining order first thing tomorrow morning. Clifford is spiraling and he's becoming dangerous. He's never been physically violent. Doesn't matter. This kind of behavior can escalate. We need to protect you legally before it gets worse. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Clifford showing up at Angela's house. About him making threats. About how the man she'd married had transformed into someone she didn't recognize. Or maybe she'd never really known him at all. Maybe she'd been in love with the version of himself he'd presented, while the real person stayed hidden behind charm and manipulation. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Naomi screenshot the message and forwarded it to Jennifer with a note. More evidence for the restraining order. Jennifer responded immediately, got it. Don't engage. Block the number. Stay inside your apartment tonight. Naomi blocked the number and checked all her locks. The apartment felt secure, but she still pulled the curtains closed and turned on extra lights. She wasn't afraid exactly, but she was cautious. Aware that Clifford's desperation was making him unpredictable. Around midnight, her building's doorman called. Miss Brooks? There's a man down here claiming to be your husband. He wants to come up. Don't let him, Naomi said firmly. He's not authorized to be here. If he doesn't leave, call the police. Understood. I'll handle it. 10 minutes later, the doorman called back. He's gone. Left when I mentioned calling the police. But I'm making a note in our security log. He's not welcome in this building. Naomi thanked him and tried to calm her racing heart. Clifford was escalating. Showing up at people's houses. Coming to her building. Sending threatening messages. The man who'd once promised to love and protect her was now the person she needed protection from. She thought about the vows they'd exchanged 8 years ago. For better or worse. In sickness and health. Till death do us part. Had he meant any of it? Or had it all been performance, something he said because it was expected? The next morning, Jennifer filed for a restraining order. The hearing was scheduled for that afternoon. Naomi sat in the courtroom watching Clifford arrive with his attorney, a man named George Patterson who looked expensive and competent. The judge, an older woman named Henderson, reviewed the evidence quickly. Text messages. Witness statements from Angela. Security logs from Naomi's apartment building. Mr. Brooks, Judge Henderson said, looking over her reading glasses at Clifford. You've been harassing your estranged wife and her associates? No, Your Honor, Clifford said smoothly. I've been trying to have a conversation about our marriage. Ms. Brooks has been avoiding me and spreading lies about my character. What lies specifically? She's telling people I had an affair. She's ruining my reputation and my career. I'm simply trying to defend myself. Judge Henderson looked at Jennifer. Do you have evidence of this affair? Jennifer presented the folder of documentation. The judge spent several minutes reviewing photographs, text messages, and bank statements. Mr. Brooks, this evidence suggests you did have an affair. A prolonged one. Is that correct? Clifford shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, my relationship with Candace Pierce was complicated. My marriage was already failing when we got involved. That doesn't answer my question. Did you have a romantic and sexual relationship with Ms. Pierce while married to Ms. Brooks? Yes, Clifford admitted quietly. And did you use marital funds to support this relationship? Clifford's attorney whispered something to him. Yes. Then I'm granting the restraining order, Judge Henderson said. Mr. Brooks, you are to stay at least 500 feet away from Ms. Brooks at all times. No contact of any kind. No third-party contact. No showing up at her residence or workplace. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. Do you understand? Your Honor, that's not fair. She's my wife. We need to communicate about the divorce. You can communicate through your attorneys. That's what they're paid for. The restraining order is granted for 6 months, renewable if necessary. Clifford's face went red. He turned to Naomi and for a moment she saw something in his eyes that looked like hatred. Pure, uncomplicated hatred. Outside the courtroom, Jennifer gripped Naomi's arm. You okay? Yeah. I just didn't expect him to look at me like that. Like what? Like he hates me. Really hates me. He probably does. You're not playing the role he assigned you anymore. You're not the quiet wife who makes his life easier. You're the obstacle to what he wants, and some people can't handle that. They walked to Jennifer's car in silence. Naomi felt exhausted. It had been 3 days since the gala. 3 days of revelations and confrontations and legal proceedings. She wanted rest. She wanted peace. She wanted to go back to her apartment and sleep for a week. When does the divorce actually finalize? Naomi asked as they drove. With the evidence we have and the restraining order, probably 4 to 6 months. Clifford will drag it out as long as possible, but eventually the judge will force a settlement. And he won't get anything? He'll get whatever he came into the marriage with, plus half of any assets acquired jointly during the marriage. But since most of your wealth predates the marriage or came from inheritance, and since we have a prenup, he won't get much. Maybe some furniture. Maybe his car. That's about it. Naomi nodded. Good. At her apartment, she found flowers waiting by the door. Not roses. Sunflowers. Her favorite. The card read, Proud of you. Love Mom and Dad. She brought them inside and set them on the kitchen counter, their bright yellow heads turning toward the windows. Something about them made her smile. Made her remember that not everything was conflict and pain. Some things were just simple kindness. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard Morrison. Have you thought about the job offer? Naomi typed back, Yes. I accept. His response came immediately, Perfect. Let's announce it next week. Welcome to the leadership team officially. Naomi sat on her couch looking out at the city. In 1 week, she'd gone from being called a maid at a gala to accepting a C-suite position at a major corporation. She'd exposed her husband's affair, filed for divorce, and obtained a restraining order. She'd moved into a new apartment and started building a life that was entirely hers. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was exactly what she needed. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Naomi watched the colors shift and change, thinking about her grandmother Patricia. About the letter she'd left with the inheritance. Money is power, baby girl. Never forget that. And never let anyone make you apologize for having it. I'm not apologizing anymore, Grandma, Naomi whispered to the empty apartment. I promise. The press release went out Monday morning. Morrison Industries announces new chief investment officer. The article detailed Naomi's background, her role in the company's growth, and her vision for future expansion. By noon, her phone was flooding with messages. Congratulations from former classmates. Interview requests from business publications. Connection requests on professional networking sites. The attention was overwhelming but validating. For 10 years, she'd worked in silence. Now, suddenly, everyone wanted to know her story. Jennifer called around 1 o'clock. Have you seen the news? Which news? Clifford's lawsuit against Morrison Industries was dismissed. Judge ruled it frivolous and ordered him to pay court costs. Naomi felt relief wash through her. That's good. It gets better. The judge also sanctioned his attorney for filing without proper cause. George Patterson is furious. He's dropped Clifford as a client. So Clifford doesn't have a lawyer? Not anymore. He'll have to find new representation, which won't be easy. Most attorneys in town know about this case now. Nobody wants to take on a client who's that volatile. After hanging up, Naomi returned to her laptop. She was drafting a strategic plan for Morrison Industries, outlining potential investments and growth opportunities. The work was engaging, requiring all her focus and skill. It felt good to use her mind this way to create something meaningful. Around 3 o'clock, her building's doorman called. Miss Brooks? There are 2 people here to see you. They say they're Clifford's parents. Naomi hesitated. She loved Susan and Harold Brooks. They'd welcomed her into their family, treated her like a daughter. But she hadn't spoken to them since the gala. Send them up, she said finally. Susan and Harold arrived looking uncomfortable, standing in the hallway like uncertain visitors. Susan's eyes were red. Harold kept his hands in his pockets, his usual confidence gone. Come in, Naomi said, stepping aside. They entered slowly, looking around the apartment. This is nice, Susan said quietly. Very nice. Can I get you coffee? Water? Water would be good, Harold said. Naomi poured 3 glasses and gestured toward the couch. They all sat, the silence heavy between them. We saw the news, Susan said finally. About your new position. Congratulations. Thank you. We also heard about the divorce. And the restraining order. Susan's voice broke slightly. Naomi, we're so sorry. We had no idea. No idea about what? About the affair. About how he treated you. About any of it. If we'd known. Susan trailed off, wiping her eyes. Harold leaned forward. We raised him better than this. We taught him to respect women, to honor commitments. I don't understand where we went wrong. You didn't go wrong, Naomi said gently. Clifford made his own choices. We confronted him yesterday, Harold continued. Told him he needs to accept responsibility for what he's done. He got angry. Said things about you that were ugly and untrue. We told him to stop and he walked out. Susan was crying now. He's our son and we love him. But what he did to you is unforgivable. We want you to know we're on your side. We'll testify in court if you need us to. We'll tell the truth about his character. Naomi felt her own eyes filling. You don't have to choose sides. Yes, we do, Harold said firmly. Because there is a right side and a wrong side here. And our son is wrong. What he's doing now, the harassment, the lies, the attempts to destroy your reputation, that's wrong too. They talked for another hour. Susan and Harold shared stories about Clifford's behavior over the past few years. Small things they'd noticed but dismissed. Times he'd been cruel to Naomi in subtle ways they hadn't fully registered. Moments where his ego had overruled his better judgment. He's always been ambitious, Susan said. Even as a child. But somewhere it turned into something else. Something harder. Less about achievement and more about status. I should have seen it earlier, Naomi admitted. The warning signs were there. Love makes us blind sometimes, Harold said. You wanted to believe in him. That's not a failure. That's being human. Before they left, Susan hugged Naomi tightly. You're still our daughter. Divorce doesn't change that. Call us if you need anything. Anything at all. After they left, Naomi sat alone with the weight of their kindness. Even Clifford's own parents were choosing her truth over his lies. That meant something. That meant she wasn't crazy or vindictive or any of the things he was trying to paint her as. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. She answered cautiously. Naomi Brooks? Yes. This is Tim Washington from the Chronicle. I'm writing a feature about your career and the recent developments with your marriage. Would you be interested in an interview? I'm not doing interviews about my divorce. I understand. But what about your career? Your rise in the business world? The challenges of being a woman in finance? That's a story worth telling. Naomi considered. Let me think about it. Send your questions to my email. If I'm comfortable, I'll respond. She gave him her professional email address and hung up. Jennifer had warned her about media attention, told her to be careful about what she said publicly. But maybe there was value in controlling her own narrative, in telling her story her way. That evening, Naomi received an email from Candace. The subject line read, I'm sorry. Naomi almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. Naomi, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I'm the last person who should reach out. But I wanted you to know that Clifford contacted me today. He wants to get back together. He said you've ruined his life and we should team up against you. I told him no. I told him what he did was wrong and I'm not interested in being part of his schemes. I'm also including more evidence that might help your case. Text messages from this week where he talks about ways to hurt your reputation. I know this doesn't make up for what I did. Nothing can. But I wanted to try to do something right. Candace. Attached were screenshots of messages between Clifford and Candace. He was desperate, alternating between begging her to come back and plotting ways to undermine Naomi's credibility. He suggested leaking false information to the press. He discussed hiring private investigators to dig up dirt. He even mentioned trying to get Naomi fired from Morrison Industries by claiming she'd engaged in corporate espionage. Naomi forwarded everything to Jennifer with a note, "More evidence for the file." Jennifer called immediately. "This is bad. Really bad. He's planning to commit crimes. What do we do? I'm sending all of this to the judge tomorrow morning. We need to strengthen the restraining order and make sure everyone at Morrison Industries is aware of his threats. He's falling apart." "Yes. And people who are falling apart are unpredictable. You need to be extra careful right now." That night, Naomi barely slept. Every noise in the hallway made her tense. Every shadow seemed threatening. She kept her phone nearby, ready to call security or the police if necessary. Around 2 in the morning her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever." She screenshot it, blocked the number and sent the evidence to Jennifer. Then she got up and double-checked all her locks. The apartment was secure. The building had good security. She was safe. But she didn't feel safe. She felt hunted. The next morning, exhausted and anxious, Naomi went to Morrison Industries for her first official day as Chief Investment Officer. Richard had arranged a welcome breakfast with the executive team. "Congratulations," said Margaret Chin, the Chief Financial Officer. "We're excited to have you officially on board. Though most of us knew you were the brain behind our success already," added Thomas Price, the Chief Operating Officer, with a smile. They discussed upcoming projects and strategic goals. Naomi felt herself relaxing into the familiar rhythm of business discussion. This was her element. This was where she belonged. Around 10 o'clock, Richard's assistant interrupted. "Mr. Morrison? Security is reporting a situation in the lobby." Everyone turned. Richard stood quickly. "What kind of situation?" "Clifford Brooks is here. He's demanding to see Ms. Brooks and refusing to leave." Naomi felt her stomach drop. "He's violating the restraining order." "I'm calling the police," Richard said, pulling out his phone. "Thomas, go down with security and make sure he doesn't get past the lobby." The next hour was chaos. Police arrived. Clifford was arrested for violating the restraining order. Employees gathered near windows, watching as he was led out in handcuffs, still shouting about Naomi and injustice and conspiracies. Jennifer arrived at the building within 20 minutes. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Shaken but fine. This is actually good for us. He's violated the restraining order with multiple witnesses. The judge will not be happy." They were right. At the emergency hearing that afternoon, Judge Henderson's expression was severe. "Mr. Brooks, you were explicitly ordered to stay away from Ms. Brooks. You violated that order within 48 hours. Do you understand how serious this is?" Clifford, now represented by a public defender since George Patterson had dropped him, looked smaller somehow. Defeated. "Your Honor, I just wanted to talk to her. To explain my side." "You can explain through your attorney. That's what they're for." Showing up at her workplace after being explicitly told not to contact her is not acceptable. Judge Henderson looked at her notes. "I'm holding you in contempt of court, 3 days in county jail. And I'm extending the restraining order to 1 year, with additional provisions. You're not only to stay away from Ms. Brooks, but also from her workplace, her family, and anyone associated with her professional life." "Your Honor, that's not fair. I have rights too." "You have the right to stay away from people you've harmed. That's the right I'm protecting today." 3 days in jail, starting immediately. Clifford was led away by deputies. He looked back at Naomi once, and again she saw that hatred in his eyes. But mixed with something else now. Fear. He was finally realizing the consequences of his actions were real and unavoidable. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer squeezed Naomi's shoulder. "It's almost over. The divorce will be finalized soon. He'll be out of your life." "Will it ever really be over though?" He'll always be out there angry plotting? Maybe. But he'll also learn that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people like this without facing real accountability. That evening, Naomi received flowers from her parents again. This time with a card that read, "Justice feels good. Love you." She also received an email from Tim Washington at the Chronicle. He'd written his feature article and wanted her approval before publishing. Naomi read through it carefully. He'd focused on her business acumen, her strategic vision, and her rise in a male-dominated industry. The divorce was mentioned only briefly, framed as a personal challenge she'd overcome with grace. She approved the article. It published the next day, generating positive response across social media. People commented on her success, her resilience, her intelligence. For the first time, the narrative wasn't about her marriage or the scandal. It was about her achievements. Clifford's 3 days in jail ended on Thursday. Jennifer warned Naomi to be extra cautious when he was released. He's going to be angry and humiliated. That's when people are most dangerous. But Thursday came and went without incident. Friday too. By Saturday, Naomi started believing maybe the worst was over. Maybe Clifford had finally learned his lesson. She was wrong. Sunday morning she woke to dozens of missed calls and messages. Something had happened. Something big. She called Jennifer immediately. "Have you seen social media?" Jennifer asked, her voice tight. "No, why?" "Clifford posted a long statement last night. He's claiming you orchestrated everything. That you planned the whole public humiliation. That you're manipulating the legal system because you have money and connections." Naomi pulled up her laptop, finding Clifford's post on multiple platforms. It was rambling and paranoid, full of accusations and conspiracy theories. He claimed she'd been planning to divorce him for years. That she'd planted evidence of the affair. That the Gala revelation was a calculated attack designed to destroy him. "This is insane," Naomi said. "I know. But it's getting shared. People who don't know the facts are commenting support for him. He's positioning himself as the victim. What do? We ignore it. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let him bury himself with his own words. Anyone with functioning critical thinking skills can see these are the ramblings of someone desperate to avoid responsibility." But ignoring it was harder than Naomi expected. All day she watched the post spread. Some people defended her. Others questioned her motives. The comments section became a battleground of strangers arguing about a marriage they knew nothing about. By evening, several news outlets had picked up the story. Local executive claims wealthy wife framed him for affair. The headlines were sensational, designed for clicks rather than truth. Naomi felt like she was drowning. This was exactly what she'd wanted to avoid. Her private life becoming public spectacle. Her pain becoming entertainment. Her phone rang. "Richard Morrison. I'm issuing a statement," he said without preamble. "Defending you and setting the record straight. Morrison Industries stands behind its chief investment officer completely." "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. Clifford worked for me. His behavior reflects on my company. I'm not letting him rewrite history." The statement went out within the hour. Morrison Industries supports Naomi Brooks fully and without reservation. Claims that she manipulated or deceived anyone are categorically false. Ms. Brooks is a woman of exceptional integrity and business acumen. We're proud to have her on our leadership team. Other statements followed. Susan and Harold Brooks posted on social media defending Naomi. Several women from the business community shared their own stories of being undermined by insecure partners. The tide started to turn. By Monday morning, Clifford's post had been taken down, presumably by the platforms for violating community standards about harassment. But the damage was done. Naomi's name was now associated with scandal and controversy, exactly what she'd spent 10 years trying to avoid. Jennifer filed additional legal motions. Defamation. Continued harassment. Violation of the restraining order through third-party contact. "We're going to bury him legally," Jennifer said grimly. "He wants to play dirty? Fine. We'll show him what dirty really looks like." But Naomi didn't want to play dirty. She didn't want to fight anymore. She just wanted it to be over. She wanted her life back. She wanted peace. That night, sitting alone in her apartment, Naomi allowed herself to cry. Really cry. Not quiet tears but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere primal. She cried for the marriage that had failed. For the years she'd wasted trying to be enough. For the person she'd allowed herself to become. For the girl who'd fallen in love with potential and paid the price for that naivety. She cried until she was exhausted. Until there were no tears left. until she felt empty and clean and ready finally to truly let go. 3 weeks after Clifford's social media meltdown, Naomi was finally finding her rhythm. She woke each morning in her penthouse apartment, made coffee in the bright kitchen, and spent an hour reviewing investment portfolios before heading to Morrison Industries. Work had become her sanctuary. The numbers made sense in a way people didn't. Market trends were predictable. Risk could be calculated. There were rules that everyone followed, and when those rules were broken, there were consequences. "You're here early," Margaret Chin said one morning, finding Naomi already at her desk at 7 o'clock. "Don't you ever sleep?" "I sleep fine. I just like getting a head start." Margaret sat across from her, studying Naomi's face. "You look better. Less tired." "I feel better." "Good. Because I wanted to talk to you about something." Margaret pulled out a folder. "There's a conference in San Francisco next month. Tech investments in emerging markets. I think you should be our representative." "That's usually your territory." "I know. But you need to start building visibility in the industry. People need to see your face, hear your ideas. Being chief investment officer means being a leader, not just a strategist." Naomi considered. The old version of herself would have declined, would have found reasons to stay in the background. But that version was gone. "Okay. Send me the details." Margaret smiled. "That's the spirit. Also, I'm organizing a women in business networking group. First meeting is next Thursday. You should join." "I'm not really a networking person." "You are now. Part of leadership is building relationships. Plus, there are a lot of women out there who could learn from your experience." After Margaret left, Naomi sat thinking about her words. Building relationships. Being visible. These were things she'd actively avoided for years. But maybe it was time to stop hiding. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Good news. Divorce is scheduled for final hearing next month. Clifford's attorney is recommending he accept our settlement offer rather than fight. This could be over soon." Relief washed through Naomi. Over. The word felt impossible and perfect. She responded, "What made him finally give up?" "Reality. He has no job, no money for legal fees, and a criminal record now for violating the restraining order. Fighting will only cost him more money he doesn't have." That evening, Naomi attended her first therapy session. Dr. Patricia Green had been recommended by Jennifer as someone who specialized in helping people recover from difficult divorces. "Tell me about yourself," Dr. Green said, settling into her chair in the comfortable office. "What do you want to know?" "Whatever you want to share. There's no script here. Just conversation." Naomi found herself talking about her grandmother. About the inheritance. About meeting Clifford and falling in love. About the slow erosion of her self-worth as she tried to make herself smaller to fit his needs. "When did you first notice you were making yourself smaller?" Dr. Green asked. "Maybe 2 years into the marriage. He made a comment about women who intimidate their husbands. It was casual watching a TV show. But I remembered it. Started wondering if I intimidated him." "And did you?" "Probably. But that's his problem, not mine. I shouldn't have to diminish myself to make someone else comfortable. That's a healthy perspective." "When did you come to that realization?" "At the gala. When he called me his maid. Something just clicked. Like, why am I protecting someone who clearly doesn't care about protecting me?" They talked for an hour about boundaries, self-worth, and the process of rebuilding identity after betrayal. Dr. Green gave Naomi homework. Write down 5 things she liked about herself that had nothing to do with her relationships or her work. Just 5 things about Naomi as a person. Interests, qualities, characteristics. Rediscover who you are outside of being someone's wife or someone's employee. At home that night, Naomi sat with a blank notebook, staring at the empty page. 5 things. It should be easy. But the words wouldn't come. She liked, what? Coffee in the morning. But that was just a preference. She liked helping people. But that was about relationships. She liked solving problems. But that was work-related. What did she like about herself as a person? After an hour, she had a list. I'm honest even when it's hard. I have good taste in music. I'm a decent cook when I have time. I'm loyal to people who deserve it. I don't give up easily. It wasn't profound, but it was honest. And it was a start. The next week passed quickly. Naomi attended Margaret's networking group and met 15 other women in various industries. They shared stories about challenges, successes, and the unique obstacles women face in professional settings. A woman named Lisa, who ran a tech startup, pulled Naomi aside after the meeting. I wanted to thank you. What you did at that gala inspired me to stop hiding my success from my partner. We had a hard conversation, but we're in a better place now. I'm glad something good came from it. It wasn't just good. It was necessary. You showed a lot of women that we don't have to apologize for being successful. Comments like Lisa's kept appearing. Women approached Naomi at the office, at coffee shops, even at the grocery store. They shared their own stories of feeling diminished or dismissed, of making themselves smaller, of finally finding courage to take up space. Naomi started keeping a file of these stories. Not for any specific purpose, just to remember that her pain had meaning, that her choice to speak up had rippled outward in ways she couldn't predict. One afternoon, Richard Morrison called her into his office. "We need to discuss the San Francisco conference. I want you to be a keynote speaker." "A speaker? I thought I was just attending." "Originally, yes. But the organizers heard about your story and want you to speak about navigating personal challenges while maintaining professional excellence." Naomi's stomach tightened. "I don't want to be known as the woman who got humiliated at a gala." "You're not. You're known as the woman who responded with grace and power, who didn't let betrayal destroy her, who turned pain into purpose." That's a very generous interpretation. It's the accurate interpretation. Think about it. You have until Friday to decide. Naomi thought about it constantly over the next 3 days. Speaking at a major conference would make her even more visible, more vulnerable. But it would also give her control over her narrative in a way she hadn't had before. On Thursday she called Richard. "I'll do it. But I want to review the speech outline first. I'm not comfortable being positioned as a victim who overcame adversity." "How do you want to be positioned?" "As a businesswoman who made strategic decisions about her personal life, who protected her assets and her reputation, who understood that sometimes the best investment is in yourself." "I like that. Write the outline you want and we'll make it work." Naomi spent the weekend writing. Not a speech yet, just notes. Thoughts about identity and worth. About the difference between being nice and being respected. About the cost of silence and the power of truth. By Sunday evening she had a rough outline. She sent it to Richard, who responded enthusiastically. "This is perfect. Strong, professional, and deeply personal without being melodramatic. Let's refine it this week." Monday morning brought unexpected news. Jennifer called before Naomi left for work. "The divorce is finalized. Judge signed the papers this morning. It's done." Naomi sat down heavily on her couch. "Done? Just like that? Just like that?" "Clifford accepted the settlement. You keep everything that's yours. He keeps what little he came into the marriage with. No spousal support. Clean break." Why did he finally agree? His public defender convinced him he had no chance of winning. And apparently he's trying to get hired somewhere new. Having a messy divorce in court wouldn't help his prospects. After hanging up, Naomi sat in silence. Divorced. She was officially single again. No longer attached to the man who'd called her his maid. No longer responsible for his feelings or his ego. She expected to feel relieved. Instead she felt numb. 8 years of marriage, ended with a signature on a document. All that history, all those moments, reduced to legal language about asset division. But maybe that was appropriate. The marriage had stopped being about love years ago. It had become a contract neither party honored. Now the contract was dissolved and both parties could move forward. Naomi went to work and tried to focus on her tasks. But her mind kept wandering to the past. To moments she'd forgotten. Clifford bringing her soup when she was sick in their second year together. Clifford dancing with her at a friend's wedding, both of them laughing. Clifford promising her that they'd build something beautiful together. When had those promises stopped meaning anything? When had love turned to resentment? She'd probably never know for sure. And maybe that was okay. Maybe some questions didn't need answers. At lunch, Margaret found her eating a salad at her desk. "You heard about the divorce? How did you know?" "Jennifer called Richard to update him on your legal status. He told me. I wanted to check on you." "I'm fine. Surprisingly fine, actually. That's because you did the hard work already. The emotional processing happened months ago. The legal stuff is just paperwork." They ate together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Margaret said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you regret the marriage? Looking back, do you wish you'd never met him?" Naomi considered. "No. I learned a lot. About myself, about what I want, about what I won't accept. If I'd never married Clifford, I might still be making myself small for someone else. Maybe someone better, but still someone else. Now I know better. That's a healthy way to look at it. Plus, if I'd never married him, I wouldn't have this job. He pushed me to hide my success, which made me build something even bigger in the shadows. In a weird way, his insecurity made me stronger. Margaret laughed. That's probably not how he intended it. Definitely not. But that's how it worked out. That evening, Naomi went to her second therapy session. Dr. Green asked her to talk about the divorce finalization. I thought I'd feel more, Naomi admitted. Happy or sad or something. But I mostly feel neutral. Neutral is healthy. It means you've processed the major emotions already. The grief, the anger, the betrayal. Now you're just dealing with logistics. Is it normal to feel guilty though? Guilty about what? About being glad it's over. About not fighting for the marriage harder. About being relieved he's out of my life. Those feelings are completely normal. You're allowed to be glad a painful situation has ended. That doesn't make you cruel or heartless. It makes you human. They discussed Naomi's upcoming speech at the San Francisco conference. Dr. Green helped her think through what she wanted to say and why. Your story is powerful, Dr. Green said. But it's not just about surviving betrayal. It's about rediscovering your worth. That's what resonates with people. I don't want to be a spokesperson for divorced women. You're not. You're a businesswoman who happens to have experienced something common. By sharing honestly, you're showing other people they're not alone. Walking home that night, Naomi felt something shift inside her. The heaviness that had been sitting on her chest for months was lifting. Not completely, but noticeably. She could breathe deeper. Walk lighter. At her apartment, she ordered takeout and ate standing at the windows watching the city lights. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Heard the news about the divorce. How are you feeling? Naomi typed back, okay. Better than okay actually. Free. Her mother's response came quickly, good. You deserve freedom. And happiness. And everything good this world has to offer. Your father and I are proud of you. Naomi smiled at the message. Proud. Her parents were proud of her. Not for staying in a bad marriage. Not for being patient or understanding. But for leaving. For choosing herself. That night, she pulled out her notebook and added to her list of things she liked about herself. I'm brave enough to walk away from things that don't serve me. I learned from my mistakes. I'm building a life I'm proud of. The list was growing. And so was she. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for a cold February morning. Naomi dressed carefully in a maroon suit, her grandmother's pearl earrings, and shoes that made her feel powerful. Jennifer met her at the courthouse steps. Ready? Jennifer asked. As ready as I'll ever be. They entered the courtroom together. Clifford was already there with his public defender, looking smaller than Naomi remembered. Thinner. His suit was wrinkled. He didn't look at her when she walked in. Judge Henderson entered and everyone stood. The hearing began with a review of the settlement agreement. Everything Naomi had brought into the marriage remained hers. The house, the investment accounts, her shares in Morrison Industries. All hers. Clifford received the car they'd bought together, some furniture he'd selected, and his personal belongings. No spousal support. No claims on her business. It was exactly what Jennifer had predicted. Mr. Brooks, Judge Henderson said. Do you understand and accept the terms of this agreement? Yes, Your Honor, Clifford said quietly. And you're entering into this agreement voluntarily without coercion? Yes. Ms. Brooks, same questions. Do you understand and accept these terms? Yes, Your Honor. And you're entering into this voluntarily? Yes. Judge Henderson signed the papers with swift, efficient movements. Then by the power vested in me, I declare this marriage dissolved. You're both free to go. That was it. 8 years of marriage, ended in less than 15 minutes. No drama. No last-minute revelations. Just signatures and legal language. Outside the courtroom, Clifford's public defender stopped Naomi. Ms. Brooks? A moment? What is it? My client would like to speak with you. Just briefly. Off the record. Jennifer started to object, but Naomi held up her hand. It's fine. I'll hear what he has to say. They moved to a quiet corner of the courthouse hallway. Clifford stood awkwardly, hands in his pockets. What do you want? Naomi asked. I wanted to apologize. For everything. I was wrong. About all of it. You were. I let my ego destroy something good. I was so threatened by your success that I couldn't see how lucky I was to have you. His voice cracked slightly. I threw away the best thing in my life because I was too stupid and insecure to appreciate it. Naomi studied him. There was no satisfaction in seeing him broken. No triumph. Just sadness for wasted years. I appreciate the apology, she said carefully. But it doesn't change anything. I know. I just needed to say it. You deserved better than how I treated you. Yes, I did. Clifford nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I hope you're happy. I hope you find someone who can appreciate you properly. I already found someone who appreciates me. I appreciate myself now. That's more important than any partner. After Clifford walked away, Jennifer appeared at Naomi's elbow. You okay? Yeah. That was surprisingly anticlimactic. Most divorces are, at the end. All that anger and hurt eventually just becomes paperwork. They walked to Jennifer's car, discussing final details. The deed for the house needed to be updated. Some financial accounts needed to be closed and separated. Administrative tasks that would take a few weeks but required no additional court appearances. You're officially done with Clifford Brooks, Jennifer said as they drove toward Naomi's apartment. How does it feel? Lighter. Like I've been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. At her apartment, Naomi changed into comfortable clothes and made tea. She sat at her windows watching people move through the city below. Somewhere down there, Clifford was starting his new life. Somewhere else, Candace was doing the same. And here, 28 floors up, Naomi was beginning again too. Her phone rang. Richard Morrison. Just heard the divorce is finalized. Congratulations. Thank you. How are you feeling? Relieved. Ready to focus on work completely now. Good. Because I have a proposal for you. We're opening a West Coast office. I want you to head it. Naomi sat up straighter. Seriously? Completely serious. You'd be based in San Francisco. Full autonomy over West Coast investments and partnerships. Significant increase in salary and responsibility. That's a huge opportunity. You've earned it. Think about it. No pressure, but I need an answer by next month. After hanging up, Naomi walked through her apartment. She'd been here 6 weeks. It still felt temporary, like a hotel. She hadn't hung pictures or made it truly hers. Maybe because some part of her had been waiting. For the divorce to finalize. For permission to really move forward. A West Coast office. San Francisco. Fresh start in a new city where nobody knew her story. Where she could just be Naomi Brooks, Chief Investment Officer, without the baggage of her failed marriage. She called her mother. Morrison Industries wants me to head their San Francisco office. That's wonderful. Are you going to take it? I don't know. Part of me wants a fresh start. But part of me feels like running away. Moving toward opportunity isn't running away, baby. It's running toward something better. What if I'm making a mistake? Then you'll make a mistake. And you'll learn from it. And you'll adjust. That's what you do. That's what you've always done. After hanging up, Naomi pulled out her notebook and made a list. Pros and cons of moving to San Francisco. The pros list filled 2 pages. New challenges, new opportunities, separation from her old life, chance to build something from the ground up. The cons list had 1 item. Scared of starting over again. She stared at that single con. Scared. Of course she was scared. Change was scary. But staying small because of fear was worse. That evening she called Richard back. I'll take the job. When do you need me in San Francisco? End of March. That gives you 6 weeks to wrap things up here and relocate. I'll be ready. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Naomi found an apartment in San Francisco, a light-filled space in Pacific Heights with views of the bay. She packed up her penthouse, keeping only what mattered. Her grandmother's jewelry box. Her favorite books. The pearls she'd worn to court. Everything else could be replaced. Margaret organized a goodbye party at Morrison Industries. 50 people showed up, colleagues and friends she'd made over the past months. They gave speeches about her leadership and vision. They presented her with a gift, a leather portfolio engraved with her initials and the words, Chief Investment Officer. Don't forget about us on the West Coast, Margaret said, hugging her goodbye. Come back and visit. I will. And you have to visit San Francisco. Susan and Harold Brooks took her to dinner the week before she left. They'd stayed in touch throughout the divorce, maintaining their relationship with her despite everything with Clifford. We're going to miss you, Susan said over dessert. But we're so proud of what you've accomplished. Clifford doesn't know what he lost, Harold added. But that's his burden to carry, not yours. Have you talked to him recently? Naomi asked. Briefly. He's working as a sales associate at a car dealership. Starting over from the bottom. He seems humbled by everything. Good. Maybe humility will serve him better than arrogance did. On her last night in town, Naomi stood in her empty penthouse apartment. The movers had taken everything. The space echoed. She walked to the windows one final time, looking out at the city that had witnessed her transformation. 8 months ago, she'd been introduced as a maid at a gala. Tonight, she was a chief investment officer heading to open a new office across the country. The journey between those 2 points had been painful and difficult and absolutely necessary. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Safe travels tomorrow. You're going to do amazing things in San Francisco. Proud to have represented you. Naomi typed back, thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Another text, this time from Dr. Green. Remember what we talked about. Your worth isn't determined by your relationships or your job. It's inherent. Don't forget that in San Francisco. The next morning, Naomi boarded her flight. Window seat, coffee in hand, notebook ready for planning. As the plane lifted off, she watched her city shrink below. Watched the streets and buildings become miniature. Watched her old life literally fall away. San Francisco was waiting. New opportunities were waiting. And for the first time in years, Naomi was excited about the future. Not anxious. Not scared. Just genuinely excited about what came next. She pulled out her notebook and wrote, things I know now that I didn't know a year ago. My success doesn't diminish anyone else. Choosing myself isn't selfish. Silence protects the wrong people. I'm stronger than I thought. Starting over isn't failing. It's courage. She added one more line. 6. The best investment I ever made was in myself. San Francisco greeted Naomi with bright sunshine and cool ocean air. Her new apartment was everything she'd hoped for, with wide windows that let in natural light and a small balcony overlooking the bay. She spent her first weekend unpacking and arranging furniture, making the space feel like home. Monday morning arrived with the excitement of new beginnings. The Morrison Industries West Coast office was in the financial district, a sleek building with modern design and stunning views. Naomi's office was on the 15th floor, spacious and filled with light. Her assistant, a sharp woman named Rachel Torres, greeted her with coffee and a smile. Welcome to San Francisco. I've prepared briefings on all our current West Coast investments and potential partnerships. Thank you. I'm looking forward to diving in. They spent the morning reviewing portfolios and discussing strategy. Naomi felt energized in a way she hadn't in months. This was fresh territory, new challenges, opportunities to build something meaningful from the beginning. Around noon, Rachel knocked on her door. There's a charity luncheon this Friday. It's one of the bigger networking events in the city. Tech executives, venture capitalists, entrepreneurs. Richard suggested you might want to attend. What's the charity? Women in STEM Education. They fund scholarships and mentorship programs for girls interested in science and technology. Sign me up. That week passed quickly. Naomi met with investment teams, toured potential office expansions, and started building relationships with key players in the San Francisco business community. Everyone was welcoming, curious about the woman who'd been brought in to lead Morrison's West Coast operations. Friday arrived with the charity luncheon. Naomi dressed in a green suit that made her feel confident and capable. The event was held at a waterfront hotel, with views of the Golden Gate Bridge visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi Brooks? A woman approached, hand extended. I'm Amanda Foster. I run a venture capital firm focused on women-led startups. Richard Morrison told me to watch for you. Nice to meet you. They talked about investment strategies and emerging markets. Amanda was sharp and funny, with insights that challenged Naomi's thinking in good ways. They exchanged business cards and promised to continue the conversation. As Naomi moved through the room, she overheard snippets of conversation about technology trends, real estate markets, and political developments. This was her world. Numbers and strategy and calculated risks. She felt at home in a way she hadn't felt in years. Excuse me, a voice said behind her. Are you Naomi Brooks? She turned to find a man about her age, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He was tall, with dark skin and the kind of presence that suggested quiet confidence rather than ego. I'm Terrence Hamilton. I'm an architect. I heard Richard Morrison speak about you at a conference last year. Your approach to sustainable investments really impressed me. Thank you. Are you working on green architecture? That's my specialty. Sustainable design, energy-efficient buildings, urban planning that reduces environmental impact. They talked for 20 minutes, conversation flowing easily from architecture to investment strategies to shared concerns about climate change. Terrence was thoughtful and articulate, asking questions that showed genuine curiosity rather than just making conversation. Would you be interested in getting coffee sometime? He asked as the luncheon was winding down. I'd love to hear more about your investment philosophy and how it might align with sustainable development projects. That sounds good. Let me give you my card. Walking back to her apartment that evening, Naomi felt lighter than she had in months. Coffee with an architect wasn't a date. It was networking. Professional connection. But there had been something in the way Terrence smiled, something in the ease of their conversation, that felt like possibility. She called Dr. Green that night, continuing their therapy sessions remotely. Tell me about this architect, Dr. Green said after Naomi described the luncheon. There's nothing to tell yet. We're just getting coffee. But you're thinking about him. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm thinking about him. It's too soon, right? I've only been divorced for 6 weeks. There's no timeline for when you're ready to meet new people. The question is whether you're meeting them from a healthy place. Are you looking for someone to complete you, or are you open to connection with someone who complements you? I don't need anyone to complete me. I'm complete on my own. Good answer. Then coffee with an architect is just coffee with an interesting person. No pressure. No expectations. Just connection. They met for coffee the following Tuesday at a small cafe near Naomi's office. Terrence arrived exactly on time, carrying a portfolio of his recent projects. I brought these to show you what I mean about sustainable design, he said, spreading out photographs of buildings he designed. They were beautiful, modern structures that somehow felt integrated with their natural surroundings rather than imposed upon them. These are stunning, Naomi said, studying a community center built with reclaimed materials and solar panels. Thank you. I believe architecture should serve people and planet both. Not one at the expense of the other. They talked for 2 hours, conversation ranging from architecture to investment strategies to personal philosophies about success and meaning. Terrence had been divorced 3 years earlier, no children, and had spent the past year focused on rebuilding his practice and his life. I made mistakes in my marriage, he said honestly. I prioritized work over relationship. Assumed my wife would always be there waiting when I finally had time for her. By the time I realized what I was doing, she'd already checked out emotionally. Do you regret the divorce? I regret how I behaved during the marriage. But the divorce itself was necessary. We'd become strangers living in the same house. Ending it was the honest thing to do. Naomi appreciated his candor. No bitterness. No blame. Just acknowledgement of his role in what went wrong. As they were leaving, Terrence said, I'd like to see you again. Not for business. Just to spend time together. I'd like that too, Naomi admitted. But I need to be upfront. I just got divorced. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. Neither am I. But I'd like to get to know you better. As friends, if nothing else. They agreed to meet again the following weekend. Naomi walked back to her office feeling nervous and excited and cautiously optimistic. This was new territory. Dating after divorce. Opening herself to possibility while protecting the space she'd worked so hard to create for herself. That evening she called Margaret Chin, who'd become a close friend over the past months. I met someone, Naomi said. Already? You've only been in San Francisco 3 weeks. I know. It's probably too soon. Or it's exactly the right time. Tell me about him. Naomi described Terrence, their coffee date, the ease of their conversation. Margaret listened without judgment, asking questions that helped Naomi clarify her own feelings. Do you trust him? Margaret asked. It's too early to trust him. But I trust myself. That's the difference. With Clifford, I ignored red flags because I didn't trust my own judgment. Now I do. Then go to dinner with the architect. Have fun. See what happens. You deserve to enjoy your life, Naomi. Saturday arrived with Terrence picking Naomi up for dinner at a restaurant overlooking the water. They talked about their childhoods, their families, their dreams for the future. Terrence had grown up in Seattle, studied architecture at University of Washington, and moved to San Francisco 8 years ago for a job opportunity that had turned into his own firm. What about you? He asked. What brought you to Morrison Industries? Naomi told him a simplified version of her story. The inheritance from her grandmother. Building her investment portfolio quietly. The decision to work with Richard Morrison. She left out the details about Clifford and the Gala, not ready to share that pain with someone she barely knew. You must be incredibly smart, Terrence said. Building that kind of success takes serious skill. And luck. And timing. And a grandmother who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They walked along the waterfront after dinner, conversation continuing easily. Terrence was respectful of her space, not trying to rush anything, content to just enjoy her company. "Can I see you again?" he asked as they reached her apartment building. "Yes, I'd like that." He smiled, that easy, genuine smile that made her feel comfortable. "Good. I'll call you." Over the next month, Naomi and Terrence saw each other regularly. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into weekend activities like visiting museums or hiking in Marin County. They took things slowly, building friendship before anything romantic developed. Naomi appreciated his patience. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give. Never tried to rush the connection. He seemed content to let things develop at their own pace. Meanwhile, work was thriving. The West Coast office was exceeding projections. Naomi had secured 3 major investment deals and was building partnerships with key players in the tech industry. Richard called regularly to express his satisfaction with her leadership. "You've exceeded every expectation," he said during one call. "The board is talking about expanding your role even further. Potentially making you chief investment officer for the entire company, not just West Coast. That's a significant promotion. You've earned it. Think about it. We'll discuss details next quarter." At her next therapy session, Dr. Green asked about her life in San Francisco. "I'm happy," Naomi said, surprising herself with the simplicity of the statement. "Genuinely happy. Work is fulfilling. I'm building real friendships. And there's Terrence. Tell me about him." "He's kind. Patient. He listens when I talk. He has his own life and career, so he's not dependent on me for his identity. And he makes me laugh." How does being with him feel different than being with Clifford? Naomi thought carefully. With Clifford, I always felt like I was performing. Being who he needed me to be. With Terrence, I'm just myself. He seems to like me as I am, not as some version I'm trying to maintain. That's healthy. Real connection happens when we can be authentic. I'm scared though. Scared of trusting someone again. Scared of making the same mistakes. You're not the same person who married Clifford. You've learned. You've grown. Trust your judgment. And if red flags appear, trust yourself enough to walk away. 4 months into living in San Francisco, Terrence invited Naomi to a gallery opening for a friend's photography exhibit. She wore a blue dress that made her feel beautiful and confident. Terrence picked her up, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "You look stunning," he said simply. At the gallery, they moved through the exhibits together, discussing composition and light and meaning. Terrence held her hand, casual and comfortable, and Naomi realized she'd stopped being scared. Stopped waiting for betrayal. Stopped protecting herself from possibility. "Can I tell you something?" Terrence said as they looked at a photograph of the Golden Gate Bridge at sunrise. "Of course. I'm falling for you. I don't want to scare you off or rush anything. But I wanted you to know. You're special, Naomi. Really special." Naomi felt her heart quicken. "I'm falling for you too. It terrifies me, but it's true. We don't have to rush. We can take this as slow as you need. What if I don't want to go slow anymore? What if I'm ready to try?" He smiled, that genuine smile she'd come to love. "Then we try. Together. At whatever pace feels right." They kissed for the first time that night, standing under string lights in the gallery, surrounded by beautiful photographs. It felt natural. Right. Like something that had been waiting to happen since that first coffee date. Walking back to her apartment, Terrence's hand in hers, Naomi thought about how far she'd traveled. Not just geographically from her old city to San Francisco, but emotionally from who she'd been to who she'd become. She'd been called a maid at a gala by a husband who couldn't see her worth. Now she was chief investment officer of a major company, dating a kind architect who appreciated her exactly as she was. She'd lost a marriage but found herself. And that trade, painful as it had been, was worth everything. At her door, Terrence kissed her goodnight. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for being worth taking a chance on." After he left, Naomi sat at her windows, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How's my successful daughter doing in the big city?" Naomi typed back, "Happy, Mom? Really, genuinely happy." Her mother's response came quickly, "That's all I ever wanted for you. Your grandmother would be so proud." Naomi smiled, touching her grandmother's pearls at her throat. "I hope so," she whispered to the empty room. "I really hope so." 1 year after the gala that changed everything, Naomi stood backstage at the San Francisco Convention Center. She was preparing to give the keynote address at the annual Women in Business Conference, an event that drew over 2,000 attendees from across the country. "5 minutes, Ms. Brooks," a production assistant said, adjusting her microphone. Naomi took a deep breath, reviewing her notes one final time. The speech had evolved significantly from her first draft. It wasn't about revenge or vindication anymore. It was about transformation. About the journey from hiding your light to letting it shine fully. "You're going to be amazing," Terrence said, appearing at her elbow. He'd flown in from Seattle where he'd been consulting on a major sustainable housing project. Despite their relationship, they maintained separate lives and careers, supporting each other without depending on each other. "Thanks for being here. Wouldn't miss it." The production assistant returned. "You're on." Naomi walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. 2,000 women and men stood, welcoming her. She reached the podium, looked out at the sea of faces and felt calm settle over her. "Good morning. My name is Naomi Brooks, and a year ago, my husband introduced me as his maid at a business gala." The audience went quiet, leaning forward. "I want to tell you about that night. But more importantly, I want to tell you about the 10 years before it and the year after. Because the story isn't really about humiliation or betrayal. It's about the choices we make when we're not being seen." She walked them through her journey. The inheritance from her grandmother. Building her business in secret. Meeting Clifford and gradually diminishing herself to fit his needs. The slow erosion of her identity until she barely recognized herself. "I made myself small because I thought it would preserve my marriage. Instead, it taught my husband that I could be dismissed. That I was disposable. That my accomplishments didn't matter." Naomi described the gala. The moment Clifford called her his maid. The decision to reveal the truth. The cascade of consequences that followed. Walking onto that stage was the hardest thing I've ever done. But standing here today, I can tell you it was also the most necessary. Because silence protects the wrong people. And hiding your success only teaches others that success should be hidden. She talked about the divorce, the legal battles, the public scrutiny. About moving to San Francisco and rebuilding her life. About learning to trust again, both herself and others. "The question I get asked most is whether I regret that night. Whether I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. Because that night I chose truth over comfort. I chose myself over a relationship that was destroying me. And that choice changed everything." The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "Here's what I learned that I want you to know. Your success doesn't diminish anyone else. If someone feels threatened by your accomplishments, that's their insecurity to manage, not your responsibility to fix. You are not required to make yourself smaller so others can feel bigger." Applause erupted. Naomi waited for it to settle. "I also learned that starting over isn't failure. It's courage. Walking away from something that isn't serving you, even when it's comfortable or familiar, takes real strength. And building something new from the ashes of what you lost is an act of faith in yourself." She shared statistics about women hiding their success from partners, about the pay gap, about the unique challenges women face in business. But she framed it all through the lens of possibility rather than victimhood. We're not victims of these systems. We're warriors navigating them. And every time one of us chooses visibility over hiding, we make it easier for the next woman to do the same. The speech lasted 40 minutes. When Naomi finished, the audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Women were crying. Others were nodding vigorously. She saw her story reflected in their faces, saw recognition of their own struggles and triumphs. Afterward, a line formed for questions and comments. Women shared their own experiences of being diminished or dismissed, of finding courage to speak up, of choosing themselves even when it was terrifying. "You inspired me to leave my marriage," one woman said, tears streaming down her face. "I've been hiding my business success for 5 years. No more. Thank you." "I showed my husband the video of your gala speech," another woman said. "It started a conversation that saved our marriage. He didn't realize what he was doing. Your truth helped us find our own." Hours later, exhausted but energized, Naomi returned to her hotel room. Terrence was waiting with dinner and champagne. "You were incredible," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Truly incredible. Thank you for being here. Always. That's what partners do." They ate dinner on the balcony watching the city lights. Naomi felt content in a way she'd never experienced before. Not just happy but deeply satisfied with who she was and what she was building. "I got offered the Global Chief Investment Officer position," she said. "Richard called this afternoon. That's amazing. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. It would mean more travel. Less time in San Francisco. Less time with you." Terrence set down his glass. "Naomi, I love you. And I want to be with you. But I never want to be the reason you don't pursue your dreams. If this job is what you want, take it. We'll figure out the logistics." "You mean that?" Completely. Your success doesn't threaten me. It inspires me. Take the job. Build the empire. I'll be here, supporting you every step. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. This was what partnership was supposed to feel like. Two people building each other up rather than one person making themselves smaller. I love you too, she said. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting me. The next morning, Naomi called Richard Morrison. I'm accepting the position. When do you need me to start? Excellent. We'll announce it next month. Prepare for a lot more visibility. You're about to become the face of Morrison Industries' investment strategy. I'm ready. After hanging up, Naomi sat with the enormity of what she'd just committed to. Global Chief Investment Officer. It was everything she'd worked toward, everything her grandmother had prepared her for. And she was finally ready to own it completely. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, her former attorney who'd become a close friend. Saw your keynote speech online. You're a natural. Proud of you, lady. Another text from Margaret Chin. That speech gave me chills. You're changing lives, Naomi. One from her mother. Your father and I watched the live stream. We couldn't be prouder. You're everything your grandmother hoped you'd become. Naomi screenshot all the messages, saving them in a folder labeled reminders. For the days when doubt crept in. For the moments when she needed to remember how far she'd traveled. That afternoon she had one final appointment. A meeting with a reporter from a major business publication who was writing a feature about her career trajectory. What's the most important lesson you've learned? The reporter asked. Naomi thought carefully. That your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see it. I spent years trying to prove my value to someone who was determined not to acknowledge it. I could have spent a lifetime doing that. Instead, I chose to walk away and find people who could see me clearly. That decision saved my life. Do you ever hear from your ex-husband? No. We have no reason to be in contact. He's building his own life and I'm building mine. I wish him well, but from a distance. Do you think you'll marry again? Naomi smiled, thinking of Terrence. Maybe. If I find someone who's my partner in the truest sense. Someone who celebrates my success instead of feeling threatened by it. Someone who wants to build something together rather than compete. It sounds like you might have found that already. I might have. But I'm taking my time. I've learned the importance of really knowing someone before making commitments. And more importantly, I've learned the importance of knowing myself. The interview wrapped up with photographs and final questions. Naomi left feeling good about how she'd represented herself. Honest but not bitter. Strong but not harsh. She'd found a way to tell her story that honored her pain without dwelling in it. Walking through San Francisco that evening, Naomi stopped at a small park overlooking the bay. She sat on a bench, watching boats move across the water, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. A year ago, she'd been standing in a ballroom, being called a maid, feeling her world crumble. Today, she was sitting in a park in a new city, having just accepted a global leadership position, planning a future with someone who truly saw her. The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been dark nights and hard conversations and moments when she'd wanted to give up. But she'd kept moving forward. Kept choosing herself. Kept believing she deserved better. Her phone rang. An unknown number. She answered cautiously. Miss Brooks? This is the San Francisco Chronicle. We're doing a story about the most influential business leaders in the city. Your name came up consistently. Would you be willing to be profiled? Naomi smiled. Send me the details. I'll consider it. After hanging up, she thought about the irony. A year ago she was hiding. Today people were seeking her out. The only thing that had changed was her willingness to be seen. That evening, Terrence took her to dinner at their favorite restaurant. I have something for you, he said, pulling out a small box. Naomi's heart quickened. Terrence, if that's a ring, I'm not ready. He laughed. It's not a ring. Open it. Inside was a key. It's to my house, he said. I'm not asking you to move in. I'm just saying you're always welcome. Always have a place in my life and my space. That's perfect, Naomi said, feeling tears well up. Really perfect. They talked about the future. About the challenges of her new role and how they'd navigate the travel. About his work and the projects he was passionate about. About building something together that honored both their dreams. I don't need you to complete me, Naomi said. But I really like having you in my life. That's the best foundation, Terrence agreed. Two whole people choosing to share their journey. 3 months later, Naomi was settling into her new global role. She traveled constantly, visiting Morrison Industries offices around the world, making strategic decisions about billions of dollars in investments. She was featured in major publications, interviewed on business news programs, recognized at industry events. Through it all, Terrence remained a steady presence. They video called across time zones. They took vacations together between her business trips. They built a relationship that was flexible enough to accommodate their ambitious careers while remaining deeply connected. One evening, back in San Francisco between trips, Naomi received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "From Clifford." She almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. She opened it carefully. "Naomi, I saw your interview in Business Weekly. I wanted to reach out and tell you I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I know that probably doesn't mean much coming from me, and you have every right to ignore this message. But I wanted you to know that seeing your success has forced me to confront the ways I held you back. I was threatened by your brilliance and I tried to dim your light to make myself feel better. That was wrong. Unforgivable. You deserved a partner who celebrated your gifts, and I failed spectacularly at that. I'm in therapy now, working on understanding why I behaved the way I did. Not as an excuse, but because I don't want to be that person anymore. I hope you're happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Clifford." Naomi read it twice. Then she closed her laptop without responding. His apology was noted, but it didn't change anything. She'd moved on. His growth was his responsibility, not her concern. 6 months into her global role, Morrison Industries hosted its annual shareholders meeting. Naomi gave the keynote address, outlining their investment strategy and growth projections. The room was full of influential investors and board members. When she finished, she received a standing ovation. Richard Morrison stood beside her, beaming with pride. "That's our chief investment officer," he said into the microphone. "The brilliant mind behind our success." After the meeting, several board members approached Naomi with congratulations and questions. One older gentleman, a founding investor, pulled her aside. "I remember when Richard first told me about you. 10 years ago. He said you were the smartest investor he'd ever met but wanted to work behind the scenes. I always wondered why you hid." "Fear," Naomi said honestly. "Fear of being too much. Fear of threatening my marriage. Fear of not fitting in a male-dominated industry. And now I know that fitting in is overrated. Being myself is more important than being comfortable." He nodded approvingly. "The younger generation needs role models like you. Thank you for stepping into the light." That evening, celebrating with Terrence over dinner, Naomi reflected on how different her life looked now. "Do you ever regret how things happened?" Terrence asked. "The public nature of it all?" "Sometimes. It would have been easier to divorce quietly. But easier isn't always better. What happened at that gala started conversations that needed to happen. Women reached out to me because they saw themselves in my story. That mattered. You turned your pain into purpose." "I tried to. I'm still trying to. Every day." 1 year after her keynote speech at the Women in Business Conference, Naomi was invited back as the opening speaker. This time the audience was even larger. 3,000 people. The event was being live-streamed globally. Naomi stood backstage, feeling calm and ready. Terrence was in the front row. Her parents had flown in from home. Margaret Chin was in the audience. So was Jennifer. A community of people who'd supported her journey. "You're on," the production assistant said. Naomi walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She looked out at the sea of faces and smiled. 2 years ago, I stood on a different stage and told you about being called a maid. Today, I want to tell you about what came after. About building a life that's entirely yours. About finding love that celebrates rather than diminishes you. About the ongoing work of choosing yourself every single day." She shared updates about her career, her relationship with Terrence, the way she continued to grow and challenge herself. She talked about the importance of community, of finding people who see you clearly and support you fully. The story doesn't end with leaving a bad situation. That's just the beginning. The real work is building something new. Learning to trust again. Risking vulnerability with people who've earned it. Creating a life that reflects your values and your worth. Naomi spoke for an hour, her words landing with power and grace. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted several minutes. Women approached her afterward with gratitude and their own stories of transformation. Later that night, lying in bed with Terrence, Naomi felt complete peace. Not because her life was perfect. Not because she'd solved every problem. But because she'd learned to honor herself. To take up space. To shine without apology. "What are you thinking about?" Terrence asked, his arm around her. "How different everything is now. How much I've changed." "Changed how?" I used to think I needed to earn love by being what someone else needed. Now I know love is just about being yourself with someone who appreciates that self. I appreciate you. Every part of you. Naomi smiled in the darkness. I know. That's why this works. The next morning, she woke to an email from a publisher. They wanted her to write a book about her journey. Your story could help millions of women, the editor wrote. Naomi thought about it while making coffee. A book would mean revisiting painful memories. But it would also mean sharing lessons she'd learned. Helping others avoid the mistakes she'd made. Creating something meaningful from her suffering. She called the publisher. I'm interested. Let's talk about it. As she hung up, Naomi looked around her San Francisco apartment. At the life she'd built through courage and determination. At the future stretching out before her, full of possibility. She pulled out her notebook, the one where she'd been writing observations and lessons. She turned to a fresh page and wrote, Final thoughts on transformation. You cannot save a relationship by sacrificing yourself. Other people's insecurity is not your responsibility to manage. Starting over is an act of faith in yourself. Real love celebrates your success, not threatened by it. Your story has power when you choose to share it. Healing isn't linear, but it's worth the work. The best investment is always in yourself. You deserve to take up space. Silence protects the wrong people. Your light was never meant to be hidden. She closed the notebook and looked out at the San Francisco skyline. Somewhere in another city, Clifford was living his life, learning his own lessons. Somewhere else, women were reading her story and finding courage to tell their own. And here, in this bright apartment overlooking the bay, Naomi Brooks was fully, completely, unapologetically herself. Chief Investment Officer. Public speaker. Future author. Partner to someone who saw her clearly. And most importantly, a woman who'd learned to see herself. The journey from that gala to this moment had been painful and necessary and ultimately transformative. She wouldn't change any of it. Not the betrayal, not the public humiliation, not the hard work of rebuilding. Because all of it had led her here. To this life. To this peace. To this version of herself that she'd been hiding for far too long. Naomi finished her coffee, kissed Terrence goodbye, and headed to the office. There was work to do. A global investment portfolio to manage. A book to write. A life to live fully and loudly and without apology. And as she stepped out into the bright San Francisco morning, she felt her grandmother's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. You did it, baby girl, she could almost hear Patricia saying. You found your light and let it shine. Yes, Naomi whispered to the morning air. I finally did.